Hello, this is YouTube, here be Monsters. Still the unknown variable 6, Cancer Man COINTELPRO. I'm doing a different type of video tonight. I'm actually doing a response in real time to the Texas Governor Rick Perry. We're going to listen to some of the things that he says. And I'm going to rebut him in real time. Let's start.
There is a party in New Orleans. Oh, yeah. So let me just take a moment and say thank you to Joe Domino. He is a great fella and slipped across the... I asked him if they checked him real good before he came over here. And he's from over in Beaumont and did a great job. It is awesome to be in Louisiana. Let me tell you, home of what I consider to be one of the really great governors, a dear friend of mine, a Republican leader, Bobby Jindal. Let me tell you, everywhere you look in the state, you see the evidence of his leadership. I mean, this guy is a real competitor. He's a winner. But, Bobby, I just want to kind of leave you with one thing here. Leave our football players alone across the border, all right? Just give me some professional courtesy here. Don't take them all. You know, on a serious note, Governor Jindal is showing folks that conservative principles are not just sensible, but they're truly compassionate. They're truly effective. You know, flying into New Orleans this morning, one can't help to reflect. Anita and I were just looking out the window as we were coming in and thinking about the destruction that visited this city when Hurricane Katrina came through, and you know, and just this amazing story of the human spirit, and it's given this town back its vitality and its feeling, and this place is thriving again. And you know, there's been a lot of talk in this town and across the country about the government's responsibility in a recovery for a disaster, and government certainly has a very important role to play. But the real recovery comes as a result of individuals taking ownership and doing the hard work and making the things happen.
Okay, so we pay taxes. A certain percentage of those taxes goes into disaster relief funds. But you're saying that it's the individual's responsibility, right? We pay insurance because we are mandated to. In order to procure a loan from the bank, you are required to have homeowners insurance. But these same homeowners insurance companies who make campaign contributions to you refuse to pay when it comes time to hold up their part of the bargain. I suspect we won't hear you say much about that.
You know, unfortunately, this administration in Washington that's in power now clearly believes that government is not only the answer to every need, but it's the most qualified to make essential decisions for every American in every area. That mix of arrogance and audacity.
Kind of like the signing of the USA Patriot Act, Rick? Where the government tells us what is best. When the government tells us that it's in our best interests that they spy on us. How about that, Rick?
Guides the Obama administration is an affront to every freedom-loving American and a threat to every private sector job in this country. You know,
a threat to every private sector job in this country. I find it interesting, Rick, I'm going to address you directly. I find it interesting that when you speak about a threat to every private sector job in this country, you do not speak of our former president, who in 8 years managed to turn a thriving economy and take it into the worst economic recessions in recorded history. I suspect that I won't hear you address that either. The stock market crashed in September of 2008. That was before the election, Rick. Can't blame that on Obama, can you?
Whether they're seeking to punish a company like Boeing that's wanting to go into South Carolina, they're pressuring company leadership in Forest Laboratories in New York, imposing EPA mandates that will kill jobs right here in Louisiana.
They're imposing EPA mandates that will kill jobs right there in Louisiana because the corners that these companies are cutting are leading to the release of certain materials that will kill human beings. I know what you're about, Rick. That's why I'm doing this. You're about removing any government control, any constraint over the corporation in this country, to drive us into a state of neo-feudalism where our government is not owned by the people but by the corporations. Well, it already is, but you're seeking to preserve that and to further that agenda. I know what you're doing and others know what you're doing as well. And while Obama has not lived up to his promises, I can assure you we're better off with him than we are with you.
They clearly think that they know best. And let me tell you, I vehemently disagree. They don't know best.
That's true. You agree. They don't know best. You believe that ExxonMobil knows best. You believe that Shell Oil, Royal Dutch Shell, knows best. You believe that Procter & Gamble knows what's best. Goldman Sachs knows what's best. You want them to control our future. Isn't that right, Rick?
Now, I happen to believe that our nation was built on the shoulder.
I wanted to touch upon something else too. You were defending Boeing. You were defending Boeing. Let's talk a little bit about Boeing. The F-16 Fighting Falcon was designed by General Dynamics. General Dynamics no longer exists. They were bought by Boeing. The AH-64 Apache, the Black Hawk, the F-18 were designed by McDonnell Douglas. McDonnell Douglas no longer exists. They were bought by Boeing. The CH-53, all variants, the CH-47 and CH-46 were designed by Sikorsky. Sikorsky no longer exists. They're owned by Boeing. Are you starting to see a pattern here? The F-14 was designed by Grumman, Northrop Grumman. Northrop Grumman does not exist anymore. They were purchased by by Boeing. You want to talk about the military-industrial complex? Others give me the military-industrial complex. I give you Boeing and Rick Perry. You are a spokesman for the military-industrial complex and the corporatization of our government.
Of working people, folks who reached our shores in search of religious and economic freedom, they and the generations that followed embraced the risk and the rewards of freedom. They tilled the land, they built the factories, they pursued innovation. They helped create a nation unlike any that the earth has ever seen. Now, unfortunately, the liberty that inspired our fledgling nation to throw off the chains of oppression, a nation that's been a magnet for immigrants all over the years. It's been the essence of the American dream. It's being constricted daily by new regulations, obligations that seek to empower government, not the people. We now live in this strange version of our founding fathers' vision in which government of the people, by the people, for the people is little more than this outdated notion, not very welcome in today's Washington.
Once again, I give you the Patriot Act, the USA Patriot Act. One of the drafters, Republican Congressman Jeff Davis, Mitch McConnell, President George W. Bush, Vice President Dick Cheney, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice.
Instead, we have these so-called leaders who ramrod unread health care legislation through the system without revealing the true cost or admitting it will ultimately make the federal government the sole arbitrator and administrator of health care.
Once again, I give you the USA Patriot Act, ramrodded through Congress. The USA Patriot Act was pushed through Congress, and few people even read it. It has given the government sole authority to spy on its own people, to record our messages, and to tap our phones without court orders. It also led to the no-knock warrant, which allows a law enforcement officer to beat in your door with a SWAT team without a warrant or without due process. It allows for individuals to be imprisoned indefinitely without trial or being charged if they are suspected as being terrorists. You want to talk about ramming something through Congress? That was an ass fucking of every principle that our nation stands for.
Instead, we have these so-called leaders who would rather pour bailout monies on companies that are too big to fail than make changes that would
pour bailout money on companies that are too big to fail. The first installment of the bailout was in September of 2008 under then President George W. Bush. Look it up. Get your facts straight, Rick. You're lying to people. I know that you're lying. Others know it as well. Tim Geithner and Ben Bernanke had meetings with the President and Congress in September of 2008, and they specifically stated during the week that the crash occurred that if we do not have this bailout money ready by Monday, we will not have an economy. They used hyperbole in order to propagate the most massive redistribution of wealth in human history, from the bottom to the top. This is the end of part one. I'm going on to part two.